Thank you very much to be here for this lecture. I have put the accent on the question of the facade that I love particularly a lot. I will present several projects which are the Citroën showroom. Especially this one, I will present it because it has been made, built partly, all the envelope, by the German contractor whose name is Gartner. And Gartner seems to be very close to Stuttgart, so I will just show this building. And after the Friedland office building, which is in marble, you will see about that. And some other department store, the cinema in Paris, and a theater in Béthune. So I think you know about the site. The story is that André Citroën has made, in the beginning of the 20th century, a very beautiful and very innovative showroom for the cars. And it was already very transparent with a sort of very big curtain wall drawn like Mondrian graphics. And the site is very small. I wanted to have only two ideas, one for the content and one for the container. About the container, which is very important to speak about today, the idea was for me that the container has to emphasize the brand. I wanted absolutely that the Citroën people didn't have to write Citroën on the building, and I wanted that the building itself expresses deeply the atmosphere and the brand of Citroën. The brand is made with a mechanical instrument, which is shown on the left part of the picture, which was very important for the cars. They had a brevet on it, and I wanted that the whole facade draw this mechanical instrument and draw the logo of the brand, which is a double triangular shape. So I have made a lot of drawing. There is a game in Japan which is that you have to express a feeling or something, an animal or an object, only with the way of folding a paper. And for me it was this inspiration. I wanted that the folded envelope of the whole building could express deeply the logo with the type of folds that I had to invent. And about the content, I wanted, like this very small and very simple model expresses, I wanted that the car has to be in the middle of the volume, has to get the first place. The public has a smaller place than the cars, and the idea was to invent a sort of sculpture, which is a sort of red tree. And on each circular platform, you have a car. The building is very vertical, and I wanted for the people to go up and down. So when they will go down, of course, they will turn around all the platforms, the circular platform. So they will see the car. But when they will go up, I wanted for them to have another type of view on the cars. And the idea was to create a sort of sculpture, a mirrored sculpture, which diffracts and give another perception on the car, which is put on the platform. So when you are going up, you see broken pieces of the cars, which was a very special idea, and the director of Citroën was not so happy in the beginning. But at the end, he was convinced that he has to build something for the cars which could have also an artistic scale. So it's not about the cars themselves, but it's about the way to play with them, and sometimes in an artistic way. We have also made a lot of models. I think it's my favorite way to invent projects. And in the office, for each project, we are doing something like 20 models. Something sometimes only for the shape itself, to sophisticate and to search deeply about the global shape, but also to fix and to detail all about the interior design. That is the model that we have given for the competition, and it was, of course, very hard after to build that. That is a model which is more detailed. It was something in the middle of the studies. So about the facade, the idea was to do a sort of graphic design all around the double chevron, which is the name of the logo in the brand. And the brand is only made with with white and red. And the idea was to play with this double chevron shape. In the lower part of the facade, this drawing is made in a very realistic way. And more you are looking at the top of the facade, more the logo is reinvented, and is less realistic. So it's a sort of game, a sort of folded game. And each prism dedicates the upper part of the prism to the expression of the logo, as you can see here. Inside, the red is perfectly visible, but outside it's not. We had to mask the color for the monumental authorities in Paris, because the color is forbidden. But of course you see it a little bit, and it was interesting for me to play with that, with the fact that during the day you don't see so much the red logo of the brand, but during the night and inside you see it in a very realistic way. It's hugely made. I mean, each prism is something like 8 meters width and 4 meters high. And as I was saying, the contractor is Gartner, because no French contractor could do this project when we have organized the bid. So we were surprised, but only 2 contractors from Germany had answered to the bid. It was Gartner and also Zelle. So we have made a lot of mock-up. We have made a 3D model. The goal was to avoid having any curved glass, because it was too much expensive. And we had to work the shape so that each lozenges were on a very flat surface. And that is some beginning of the phase under construction. It was built partly in close to Stuttgart. That is precisely the mock-up that we have made. We had to work on the mock-up we were very stressed by the question of the color, so it has to be less visible as possible for the monumental authorities in Paris. So we were working a lot on the filter. The filter is a fiberglass insulation, which is very beautiful. It's a sort of deep fiberglass of 2 or 3 centimeters deep. And it's included into the 2 glasses. It's made by Ocalux, which is also a German firm. And behind the fiberglass, there is always the red film, which is speaking and expressing the logo of the brand. They had in Stuttgart to assemble the facade in very big pieces because the phase under construction was very difficult in Paris. It was not allowed for us to build during the day and to assemble the different pieces of glass during the day. So it was a night phase under construction. And Gartner had to prepare very, very big pieces in Germany and to go by a truck in Paris. And the way to assemble it was only during the night. So I think I have some pictures. Yes, we had only the possibility to work during the night to assemble the different pieces of the whole envelope, which was a very difficult thing. And the trucks had to arrive after 1 a.m. and they had to leave before 6 a.m. So each time it was a huge piece and they had only 4 or 5 hours to succeed into assemble it on the site. So that is the result. I wanted really, because it's a car brand, and I wanted to give some poetry to this brand, which is a special brand which is working a lot on the question of the comfort and the poetry itself. I mean, it was working on it a long time ago, and it still wants to work on this type of aspects. So I wanted for the project to work only with the logo and the harmony between white and red. You have this facade which expresses the logo in a very pale and delicate way. The double logo is expressed in a realistic way on the lower part. And as I said, I wanted to play with it when you are coming to the upper part. And the building is very transparent because I wanted for it to be like a showcase, so to let a very clear visibility on the red tree, which is for me this central sculpture with all the car organized on it. And you see that during the day, the visibility of the red is very delicate. During the night, it's very bright, and we were approximately allowed to do that. And also, I wanted to create a sort of concurrence with the Haussmannian style, which is very folded and very sculpted. So I wanted for our facade to be as sculpted as the neighborhood. So to work with those folds, which had to be very visible. And that's the interior and the scale of the metallic sculpture is made by steel, and the design of each profile is different. The deepness of the steel is different from one lozenge to the other, but the visibility that you have is always the same. So it's the deepness of the steel inside which is different. And sometimes you have a lot of profiles, metallic profiles, which are totally in steel. You have no void inside. And that is the curve on the top. It was a sort of clin d'œil to the beautiful cars made by Citroën, like the DS, where you have a roof which is totally curved and very smooth. The whole building is trying to give this smoothness emotion to the public who is entering inside. The second building that I want to show is in Friedland. It's an office building which is today dedicated to the headquarters for Barclays Capital, the English bank. It was a very difficult project because I will show how I was thinking about doing a marble project, and I didn't succeed into doing it. We are always trying in the office to experiment new materials and new way of building with them, but it's sometimes a very complex story, and I'm very, very happy, of course, with the result, but it's not the story that I had anticipated before, so you will see that it's not so easy always. That is the existing building that we had to demolish. And the goal for the client, which is a very big French developer and investor, wanted for me to do an exception and to do a very calm and classical building in a way. So I could not work with so much colors as I'm normally, that I love to work with colors, with very eccentric materials sometimes. But this time the developer wanted for me to be more classical and to work with stone. So I didn't want to work with the classical stone that we have in Paris because it's a stone that I don't appreciate so much. I wanted to work with a more sophisticated stone, and I wanted to do the whole building in marble. And to do it in a very, one more time, sculpted way, because it's close to the Arc de Triomphe, and you have very, very beautiful Haussmannian style buildings. I wanted to work with the marble, but with the idea of working with it in a translucent way. So I wanted to do a folded facade because we are facing the south, and I wanted to play with the reflect and the shadows from the sun. And I wanted to work with a translucent marble to get benefit from the light going through the marble, which can be wonderful. It's a very smooth and warm color of translucidity. And the idea was for us to work with very thin slices of marbles, which were something like between 6 and 8 millimeters, so that we could keep the translucidity. And we wanted to assemble the marble on the front or in the middle of two pieces of glasses. And we have worked so much. I think we have worked for, 1 year and a half on that. We have chosen the marble in the Portugal carriers, and at the end, we quite have chosen the real pieces of the marble. I wanted to have marble which could be very white, beige, and with very strong black lines, because I wanted to assemble it like in the beautiful cathedrals where you have a sort of symmetry, and it's very interesting. I wanted to play with it in a sort of graphic way. And at the end, we have made a mock-up which was refused. The technical controller that we have in France decided to say no. And we had to redesign the project and to invent something else. At the end, I'm very convinced, I'm quite more happy. But it was a very difficult story. So we have the phase under construction now, and the last idea was to print on a film a sort of piece of marble, and we were finally happy with that because we decided to perfectly draw the black lines, the colors of the marble. We had the possibility to take care about precisely the color and the organization of the black lines. The controller, the technical controller, was afraid because the marble is a very fragile stone, and because of the pollution in Paris, which is very acid, the controller was very afraid of this fragility and of the possibility for the marble to have problems. So we have organized a drawing that you can see in a delicate way here. All the pieces of marble are assembled with a sort of symmetry which is perfectly organized. And that was the good point with the print, that we have put inside two pieces of glass. The print was very precisely drawn and colored. And we have made a facade which is sometimes flat, sometimes with some sculptures which are more deeper. It was to emphasize the meeting rooms or some specific office places which are very important. And it's like a wave. So we have organized 3 or 4 different places where really the folds are very visible, and they are catching the light in a very beautiful way. So you can see the organization like in a cathedral of the black lines. And the game that we have made with the folds, the print is inside the glass, so you have a sort of glossy aspects, and it's working with the shadows. I wanted absolutely to catch the shadows from the morning until the afternoon, and it was possible because we were precisely facing the south orientation. And Kim was speaking about the inspiration that we catch as architects with the nature. And of course, I'm like him, working a lot with natural inspiration. And one of the inspiration, of course, was the marble that you can find in the cathedrals, but it was also, for example, the butterflies, which can be so beautiful. So you can see the influences and the inspirations. And the view from the inside was perfectly organized because it was not a realistic marble, but only the printed film. It was quite better because we have really worked on the quality of the natural light. I wanted to have a sort of warm beige light inside the offices to give a very welcoming and smooth atmosphere inside the working places. And that is the view during the night, and the way that the graphics are sometimes very visible during the night and sometimes a little bit less visible during the day. That is the last project that we are building in Paris at the moment. It's a cinema. We are working for Gaumont Pathé, which is a very well-known brand, having a lot of existing cinema in Paris, and now they want to refurbish most part of them. And the cinema is this building, so we have demolished it. That was the existing facade. It was a facade made in the 1920, something like that. So in a very old style, with a very big printed paper to emphasize the movies. Now it's the picture is made 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we are doing the demolition of the existing building. And it's very, impressive because we have to keep the arches to stabilize the walls, which are on each faces, because they are not stabilized themselves. So we have to keep the arches, but we will demolish them after the beginning of the phase under construction. The idea for me was to come back to the history of the cinemas. And I wanted to think about a cinema which could be like a concert hall, so a place where you can go for seeing a movie, of course, but also where you can spend time before and after the movie, to have lounges, to have discussion, to have, to take the whole evening to spend in this place, not only to go see the movie and go out. So we wanted to emphasize a lot of common places, and the idea was to sculpt the whole project around the rooms. So we have 8 rooms totalizing 1,300 people, seats. And we wanted to sculpt all the common facilities around those rooms, which could be like black stones. And we wanted to increase the presence of the stairs. So always in the place, you have the stairs which are inside the room, which are also outside, creating all the ceilings. And the stairs inside are continuing outside to create lounges where you can sit down before and after the movie. And the idea is to organize a lot of teasing and advertisings and pieces of movies on the wall. Sorry, on the wall, which is here. So people are really enjoying the movie before going inside the room and also after going outside the room. We have made a lot of models to emphasize this huge place with all the stairs everywhere. It's really the way to sculpt the space. And in this picture, you can see the organization of the 8 rooms. And outside, you have a big transparency joining 2 streets. And you have a sort of atrium which is playing with escalators, stairs, and all the lounges where you can sit down and see the movies on the facades. One more time, I wanted to make insert that from the exterior of the movie, of the cinema, you can say the interior life. And I wanted also to play with a sort of digital art which will envelop all the interior spaces. That is another model that we have made to illustrate the way to fold all the ceilings with the idea, the demultiplicated idea of the stairs. And that is a section just to understand the facade is also itself folded. And that is a picture made from the atrium, from the inside, with the idea for the people to meet there, to see pieces of the movies, and after that to go inside the room. And I wanted for the interior design to be very calm. I wanted to create a sort of quite different way of building a cinema, because always you have so much colors, so much advertising. So I wanted, in an opposite way, to create a very pure atmosphere, which is full of gray. It's only concrete, which is everywhere. So the total atmosphere in the common places is middle gray, so that it can be itself the support of movies, of the reflection of the LED that we will create inside the facade. So the color is only brought by the movies, LEDs, and the multimedia aspects. And except that, everything is gray in a very pure way. That is a whole very vertical atrium, an overview. And now I'm coming on the facade. We wanted to reintroduce a very big screen to create the advertising of the cinema, but we wanted to avoid having a screen like in a football stadium. So I wanted to invent a screen which will be made with LED, but with different densities, and also with the idea of creating a progression. So in the center, you have a screen which is very dense and full of details, and more you are going outside in the limits, in the borders of the facade, more the LED are less dense, and also they are creating a lot of interruption. And the idea was to, at the end, having a sort of mist of multimedia, of LED. It's a sort of fog that you can really embrace when you are looking at the picture. And we wanted for the Gaumont Pâté to play with that. So to work really with a movie in the middle, but to make insert that the movie disappears progressively on the borders of the facade. So we are working with different pitch and also with the fact to interrupt the pitch to create this mist of light in the borders. We would like also for the brand to work sometimes with very pale during the day, very pale movie, very monochrome movie, and during the night, very, of course, more brighter movie. And the idea for the facade is to work with folded lines. The constraint was that we wanted for the main part of the screen to be looking at the pavement and the public spaces underneath, so that you get the maximum of visibility. And after that, the folds are going in another direction, sometimes facing the sky, but it's less important. We wanted absolutely to break the idea of having a sort of football screen. So it's really the idea of having something very poetic, and we would like also to give it for artists For example, there is a moment during the year in Paris which is called Nuit Blanche, where digital artists are embracing a lot of buildings in Paris, and we would like for them to have the possibility to play with our building. And the falls, which are coming from the top of the building, they are going down, and they are at the end, before touching the pavement, they are turning to create a big canopy for the entrances, so that when you will enter into the movie, you will have the feeling to enter into a sort of tube, which will envelope you inside the digital light. And also during the very late night, we would like for the colors to be very pale and for the movie to disappear more and more and in a very pale aspect. That is a very special project that I have made for the Galerie Lafayette, which is a department store which is well known in Paris. They asked me a very strange demand. It was to refurbish all the facades, which is very important because we had 3 facades, and they wanted for me to envelope them in an idea that I was thinking, I find it a little bit conventional. And because the budget was not so important, and because the existing facade, of course, is very flat, but not so bad for me, because it's a facade made with a very pale stone, perfectly harmonized with the pavement. At the end, I decided to propose to the client not to envelope the facades. Definitely for me, it was a very conventional demand and a very risky one, because it was too much expensive and it was not fitting with their budget. So I decided to propose to them, instead of enveloping the facade, I proposed to them to create a huge canopy to emphasize the entrance and to create in an artistic way a sculpture very close to the public and to the entrances. I found this idea much more better because it was a way to be closer to the public, to the entrances, to the users, and to create something which will protect them in a very expressive and iconic way. And it was a way also to replace this horrible canopy, which was very dark and very low. So it was, the scale was not interesting, because when you enter into the building, you seem to be totally in a small scale, and the monumentality with the upper scale with the stone facade is not interesting at all. So I decided to work on the question of creating a canopy like really a huge piece with a huge cantilever, something very, very powerful. We have made a lot of paper models in the office, sometimes very conceptual one, like this one. The idea was to create a canopy which could go upper when you are facing the angles of the building and emphasizing the precise locations of the entrances. I wanted also to try with the question of the reflects, because even if my canopy would be very big, I wanted to double the bigness of the canopy. So the idea was to create underneath the canopy a sort of mirrored facade which could double the presence of the canopy. And at the end, the client was convinced, so we have made models. We wanted to be transparent, but not so much, because we wanted to create a specific atmosphere underneath the canopy. And we wanted to work with a sort of cantilevers and structure which could be triangular shaped, like the pieces of glass would be. So it's entirely a sort of, one more time, folded canopy which is going up, and enveloping also the trusses and all the profiles that we were needing for the cantilevers. At the end, it was a very difficult project because we had to put all the cantilevers on the existing structure, which was not so easy. That is pictures that we have done during the conception of the project. So you can see the idea of doubling the canopy inside the curtain wall during the night. It's like a skirt, so you go outside the canopy, which is really enveloping you and protecting you. During the phase under construction, there were some very beautiful moments. The extremity cantilever, it's 8 meters, so it's very big, and we didn't have any cables to fix the extremity of the cantilever to the facade. So it's a very sophisticated work that we have made with the facade engineers. And you can see the way for the trusses to be assembled in a triangular shape. And after that, the glass is coming. The glass is including 4 or 5 printed filters, which were totally transparent, but at the end it was a little bit translucent, which was our wish. We wanted absolutely to have 5 films, 5 red films, because we had absolutely to take care of the red, the type of red that the Galeries Lafayette has for its logo, and we wanted also for the red to be very perenne, because the red is a color which is fragile with the sun. So with this superposition, we can avoid to have a paler red in 4 or 5 or 10 years. And also we wanted for the red to be to be extremely bright and powerful, like something which can be phosphorescent during the night, and it was possible only with this superposition of 5 red films. And that is the curtain wall which is above, and the question of the reflex, that is the phase under construction. So we have one more time beautiful shadows. I'm always very interested with the question of the shadows and the way for a building to react with the sun, the natural light, and the way to sculpt the shadows coming from the sun itself. The curtain wall, you can see it's something which is reflecting the canopy, but also it's reflecting the building which are in front of the Galeries Lafayette. It was important for us to create something on the lower part of the building which is full of reflect and animation. And the canopy is going up and down, and one more time going up and down on the opposite facade. It's always to emphasize the location of the entrances, and you can see the upper part of the facade. We wanted also for the artificial light during the night to be an artistic work, and we have worked for that with artists who are called ON. It's artists who are working always with the light. And we have put very long lines of red lights to increase this graphism, this graphic aspect of the canopy during the night. The last project that I would like to show is a theater in Béthune. It was one of my first projects 20 years ago. So it's a project that I have made and that I have just extended 20 years later. So it was very interesting for me to come back on one of my first projects. The first project is this part. It's a theater which was complex to design because we had to take care about a house, a little mansion which was present at the corner, so the project had to turn around it. And 20 years later, the corner had to be demolished And we had the possibility to do the extension, which is just finished since 2 months. It's this very black block. I have to say that this project has been made with a very, very small budget. So in this fair, which is dedicated to the facade, I want to speak about that because when we are doing a lot of glass folds, sophisticated envelopes, it's, we have to admit that it's very expensive. But sometimes we have to work with very low budgets. I mean, in France, it's often the case. And I wanted to be as inventive as if I had a very big budget. So the first phase of the building, which was made 20 years ago, was also with a very low budget. And we had facades which were in concrete. You think that perhaps the skin is very sophisticated. In fact, it's absolutely not. It's a simply concrete wall which is lacked with a very deep painting and a very glossy one, like a Chinese lacquer. But it's absolutely not expensive. It's the price of a painting. And on it, we have printed a sort of very big lozenge shape graphic, which is inspired by the work that you can see often in the north part of the France. The theater is located in the north part of France, in a territory where the poverty is very important. And against this poverty, you have a lot of municipalities who are who want absolutely to create a lot of cultural equipments like Le Louvre-Lens, that have made Sana in another type of budgets. And in between, the mayor wanted to create a very prestigious theater in his town, which is only 20,000 inhabitants. So it's a very important theater in France, which is linked to the Ministry of the Culture. And even if it's linked to the Ministry of the Culture, it's a very low budget equipment. And the main goal of the state and of the town was to create a perfect tool for the artist and to dedicate the most part of the budget to the functionalities inside. So that at the end, I didn't have a so big budget for the outside, but I wanted, even without budget, to create something which is very powerful. And sometimes when I have this type of constraint, I'm working a lot with the colors. So the first phase is this curved envelope, enveloping in a very strict way the stage and the theater itself. And you can discover progressively the extended part, which is here. I didn't want to continue with the same style of architecture. It was difficult to continue the curves. I wanted to create something else in a very different style, but in the other hand, with a style which is fitting, creating a sort of dialogue with the first phase of the building. So one more time, it's a very simple covering. It's only metallic panels, folded metallic panels, which are assembled in a more sophisticated way, but it's really industrial panels. And I wanted to play with two types of black, one very glossy black, one very matte black, which are assembled in a lozenge way to create the link with the previous phase of the project. And when you are looking at the project, you have always a different impression and visibility on the project. I must say that I was inspired by the painter, the artist Soulage, that you can perhaps know. It's a French painter who has worked all his life with the question of the black. And it's incredible how you can have a big emotion looking at his painting, even if the paintings are full of black. So I wanted to create a delicate link with his painting, playing with those glossy and matte black in my own facade. So you have the first one, the lozenges are drawn, and you have the second facade where the lozenges are made with the industrial black panels. And because Béthune is a town in the north, you have, of course, you don't have so much sun, but the natural light help, as you can see here, playing with the black and creating sometimes a facade which is very bright and sometimes quite white. And that's the interest of the black. It's the fact that you can see it as a black panel, but you can see also it has quite a white, paler black, and there is a huge way of looking at the building. So I was very happy at the end, because with a facade which is only 300 euro per square meter, I think it was a success to create at the end a volumetry and a whole theater which is very iconic in the town of Béthune and which is very visible and expressing the work which is made inside, where also everything had to be black to emphasize the work of the artists. And that's my last picture. Thank you very much.